back in Kansas. Lots of things to do as I settle back into city life for a while. Now, I checked on the house and it survived the winter just sitting there alone. The mail delivery is back to normal and I'm back to using my Google Fiber Wi-Fi. No more slow internet. The RV is plugged in and ready for my continued occupancy. After all, the RV has the appliances and the bed. It's kind of interesting when I look around the house and it seems bigger, even too big. And then when I look around the neighborhood, it looks small, more confined than I remember. I guess travel really does provide a new perspective on life. So, the big question, do I stay or do I go? It seems the same decisions I had before I left for Texas are the same ones I have now. So, how about I start with tossing a pile of numbers around and see where they land. Here's a few numbers to boggle the mind. First, here are the travel stats that were conveniently kept track of by an app on my smartphone. Now, I traveled 3,028 miles round trip from Kansas to Texas and back, including all the supply runs. That comes to 26 fill-ups totaling 484 gallons of gas, or $1,095 total for fuel. That resulted in an average fuel mileage of 6.5 miles per gallon, or $42 per fill-up, at a cost of $2.27 per gallon. And yes, I used mid-grade for this old big engine. I may change that philosophy next time. In addition, 2 quarts of oil was used. I suspect the 10% grade at Palo Duro Canyon in northwestern Texas as I headed south, and climbing the new state mountains of east central Oklahoma heading back north, influenced that oil loss. Still, it's not too bad for a 29-year-old motorhome with 90,000 miles on it. As for the cost of living, here's what I found. First, I needed a reference standard. After comparing numbers from various income sources like want-ads and Social Security reports and even my own retirement account, I decided to challenge myself with a nice round number. $20,000 gross annual income. That's the equivalent of about $10.42 an hour for a full-time job. Then I deducted a typical 20% for income taxes. I also ignored any income tax refund at the end of the year. So that leaves $16,000 per year, or $1,333 per month, but I rounded it off to $1,300. Now let's use some real-world numbers, rounded off at the end of the calculations. We don't need to make too much sense of it all. I've been tracking my expenses with the checkbook program and also using a spreadsheet to assist in performing the math. So I'll be using numbers collected from 2016. Now, I separated the expenses into 2 categories: home expenses and RV expenses. Any common categories were included in both. But I biased the selection in favor of living in the house. Also another challenge. First, I start with the costs involved in home ownership. The annual expense budget has been set at $15,600. When I added up all the expenses, they totaled $22,500. That's an annual overrun of $6,900. To view it on a monthly basis, with a budget of $1,300, the average monthly expenses totaled $1,870. That's an average monthly overrun of $575. Clearly, there'd have to be a bit more income to cover the cost of living in the house. And that doesn't include taking the occasional vacation from living in the house. Now, let's look at the costs of living in the motorhome. We have the same annual expense budget of $15,600. When all of the expenses associated with living in the motorhome were added, it totaled $13,130. That's an annual savings of $2,470. Seen as a monthly budget of $1,300, the average monthly expenses came to $1,094, which is an average savings of $206 per month. Now, keeping in mind, I'm talking annually calculated averages. There were a few months where expenses exceeded the budget. Things like repairs and annual insurance payments are items that need financial reserves to handle these expenses. Still, I can't argue with the numbers. If I make my decision based solely on the numbers, like cold-hearted corporate types do, then it's clear. There's an advantage if I sell my house and travel in my motorhome. But I'm retired from that evil corporate world and can now include humanity into the mix. Now I have to think of things like my health and access to limited resources and the unstructured social environments, and as well as geographic environment factors. And of course, what would happen if it all fell apart and I needed a place to live? So I had to do some soul searching and balance the freedoms I enjoyed on this last jaunt with some of the realities. For instance, when I think about it, it's amazing. I spent 4 months living in Texas, living in a motorhome, powered mostly by the sun. No electric bills. I can't imagine that with the demands of a house. Then again, I think about my experiences driving this Class C motorhome and dealing with the inevitable crosswinds. I've never had to deal with that kind of stress living in a house and driving a smaller vehicle. Now perhaps there's no single perfect answer to the situation, and ultimately it would depend upon the real estate market. Now I'd like to hear what you think about all of this. Feel free to discuss it in the comments section below. Thanks.